Okay, I'm going to talk today about anatomy of a relationship breakdown. When the in this example, this is probably one of two major archetypes I see that lead to breakdowns. But this is when one partner and one worldview, I guess, one approach to life over dominates relationship, suffocates the feminine, in this case specifically, which leads to their mutual death. I would say emotional death. But more commonly, I would see this in the 1950s. I think collectively this happened with most, if not a vast majority of relationships between men and women in the 1950s. So today I'm going to kind of explore how that happened, why that happened. But I witnessed it almost firsthand. So, but a good clip I'm going to show that reminds me of this basic dynamic, just to give you a small sample of what that looks like. So that's kind of like a taste of home, but I kind of watched their dynamic unfold. But that's just a basic snippet of an over masculine dominated dynamic at home. You can tell Michelle just the character. I think Michelle Williams. I forget her name, but she was playing a character that was like very turned off by their parents' dynamic. They didn't love each other. He was angry all the time, unhappy. You could tell she. Do you want me to make you some eggs? She just accepted that bullshit from her husband. Very insecure. Her mother was fearful. Not even her own woman, you could say, not comfortable with herself as an individual, and he almost encouraged that kind of blind obedience, but in that process he killed any kind of healthy growing dynamic between them. So I'm just going to talk about how that came to pass. I don't think that that was always the case between those two specifically, between my parents either. They kind of degraded over time, and but gradually, and it was basically what I chalk it down to is, while he was somewhat, you could say, confident in his masculine values, somewhat, he was never really open to let her help him grow. So, but initially they met 25. He's a smart guy in the military, but she was attracted to his confidence, and I think it healed her insecurity, you could say. So, I think in general, women tend to be a little bit more insecure than men. This can be traced back to evolution. They're just physically more in a less physically strong standpoint. So you could say that there's some level of insecurity there. I think on a neurological level, the emotional mind is a much more volatile place. So even on that level, the level of stability and security that women feel, I think, is has a lower baseline than men in a lot of cases. So in a lot of cases, and so this traced back to like attraction surveys. They find the most compelling value that women find in men is confidence. So one thing that can override a lot of things is their chemistry between the two, but one major thing is confidence. So so I think he provided that to her at the time. Self-assuredness. This is related to confidence. How sure of you, of yourself, of your needs. And again, this can be something that men can do better than women, I think. I think society can help us in that respect, maybe. I think society is probably more male-oriented. But I think probably naturally women tend to be more service-oriented than self-oriented. You go back to evolutionary times, but also like their level of empathy is much higher. So, and selfishness, service is great, unless that's at the price of your own self-worth. And I think women can be almost too, like, think back to the 1950s, they're a lot too service-oriented, you could say. So it's like they weren't even people, they just existed to serve men. And so you kind of, and that's unhealthy. I mean, any person has to keep a balance between self and service, and understand that you're gonna always want to make things into a win-win, and have that healthy balance between self and the world. So what I think happened was he was able to give his masculine gifts, you could say. He was able to counterbalance her, and he thought, hey, I'm the shit. I'm done. We're done. I gave you my gifts. That's it. And I got the side note. He extended that too far, and she's a stupid bitch, and I can't learn anything from her. So he goes from I'm the shit to and she's an idiot. And I just want to point out, pride comes before the fall. Eternally great words. So I think that's what happened. I mean, he had a great ego boost that, hey, I'm giving her all these things, I'm helping balance herself out. But he wasn't open to her. He wasn't open to letting her help him grow. That was too much of an ego threat to himself to allow her to help him, to give her her gifts. And so while initially that there was that strong pull, that there was a strong attraction, with time, because he just closed himself off to her, those probably positive traits, you could say, at the very beginning, with time, he just doubled down on them. So I feel confidence right now. Confidence feels good. Self-assuredness feels good. He just chose to do more of that. So when you're overconfident, when all you're doing is building yourself up, you become selfish. You can become domineering. You can become controlling. You can become arrogant. And basically, he got to the point where, and I'm sure he wasn't this at the very beginning of the relationship, he got to the point where eventually he was tearing her down to build himself up. And that's incredibly destructive. He started doing that with us. And progressively, as each child, he did the same thing. So he's been walking in this circle, throwing down that spiral for years and years and years. And he's just like a dimwit. He never adapted. He never truly adapted. He just, obsessed about control, obsessed, did everything he did to break people in order to make them obedient. Pure insanity. So, conflict resulting. So, what are the results? What can you do? Hopefully, you're monitoring yourself. You're adjusting your own development, adjusting your own growth, and hopefully you're able to pull yourself back and be open to your partner, and not only open to giving your gifts, but receiving hers as well. So, hopefully, that kind of balance mechanism comes into play. That's going to take some level of conflict, but I mean, the sign of the positive sign, I guess, is if he's open to feedback, but in yourself, open to be feedback in yourself. That's good. So there's going to be some level of conflict if this is in your partner. So from the female's perspective, if you're resisting, domineering, controlling, selfish behavior, if you're resisting that, then there's going to be some level of conflict. Either your partner adjusts and comes into balance, or there's going to be accelerated breakdown. So if he senses, if you're resisting control, and that makes him more insecure, so he begins to obsess even more about control. That's the cycle that was going on in my father's life between his kids and his wife. His wife, basically, my mother, resigned herself to stagnation and silent despair. So he just let him do it her way, his way, and just she just kind of gave up, checked out, you could say. But she, again, very insecure, very low self-esteem on her part, and she just let him treat her like a doormat. So the first step is just to recognize, he even to this day doesn't even recognize that he has control issues, doesn't recognize that he's self-obsessed, but it's really this fundamental insecurity. But he doesn't recognize the wrong of tearing people down to build himself up. So, but there's a paradox at work when you're talking about management, when you're talking about getting any kind of outcome. Like a management leadership role is great, but if you overmanage things, then you're going to get bad results. So that's about, confidence is about like being loose in the saddle, letting go. And so that's something that he never learned, but letting things go, allowing things to be, that's much more strength on the feminine side. The feminine is much more, does that intuitively. Okay, so if he was open to that, see that value, not only in the world but in his wife, he'd be able to receive that value and he'd be able to grow. This doesn't mean that he still doesn't need to give her confidence, show her confidence, that kind of thing, give her those gifts, but letting her teach him how to let go. Positive, powerful thing. It would have resulted, it would take a little bit of humbleness for him to be open to that, to admit that he didn't know everything, but in the long term he's going to get much better results, and so that would lead to a lot more positive outcomes. Self-assured to self-obsessed, he's basically a tyrant, doesn't really care that his actions, he doesn't care, he doesn't think twice about tearing people down. So in order for his own gain, his own benefit. So the critical distinction, the key to breaking with that dark side is service. Service and self need to be balanced. Service to your partner, service to the community.